Title: My wife had a date planned with another man, until I said one thing that shut her down. I knew something was coming. You don't share a house with someone for 8 years and not recognize the sound of distance being dragged across hardwood floors. It started with the sighs. The kind you exhale when someone you're supposed to love enters the room. Then the texts flipped face down as soon as I looked up. The late nights at the gym, even though the only thing Corliss ever lifted was her reflection. She didn't cheat in secret. She cheated in advance. She warmed up to it, practiced, softened the blow with a slow erosion of us. And me? I let it happen. Because I was tired. Because somewhere between her detachment and my silence, I convinced myself that love meant not fighting. But it doesn't. It means staying in the ring when the other person is already climbing out. That night, I made chicken. Not metaphorical chicken. Actual, overcooked, too dry, garlic-heavy chicken. I plated it like it mattered. Put on music. Lit a candle like a joke. And she walked in wearing heels. That's how I knew. Corliss hadn't worn heels for me in over a year. She looked stunning. And empty. Like a painting in a gallery you can't afford to touch. Smells good, she said, dropping her keys like she couldn't be bothered to care where they landed. It's not, I said. She gave me a half-smile, the kind you throw to coworkers when you pass in the hallway. Then she poured a glass of wine and leaned against the counter. I won't be long, she said, like she was talking to a dog. Not cruel. Just dismissive. I looked at her. She didn't look at me. I asked anyway. Where are you going? Her tone didn't change. Out. With who? And then she said it. Clear. Casual. A date. Like it was a weather report. No flinch. No warning. No drama. Just a scalpel to the chest with surgical detachment. I don't know what I expected. Tears? A denial? A half-hearted, it's not what you think? What I didn't expect was the way she said it like it was just a line in the script. No pause. No shame. Just, I have a date. I looked at the plate I'd made. Then at the woman who used to kiss my wrist when she thought I was asleep. And I felt something inside me snap. Not like glass. Like a rope that had been holding too much for too long. She turned to leave. That was the moment. I could have said nothing. Could have let her walk out. But something in me, the part that had watched her fall out of love with me in slow motion, finally spoke. One sentence. Just one. I said. Does he know he's inheriting a woman who can't love without needing someone else to blame? She froze. Just like that. No footsteps. No breath. Just stillness. Like a power outage in the middle of a song. She turned slowly. What did you say? I stood up. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't cry. Didn't even look angry. Just calm. For the first time in months. I said. I repeated. Does he know that once he's yours, he'll start to shrink into someone you can control, until the only version of him you like is the one that doesn't speak? Her face was unreadable. So I kept going. Does he know how you edit people down until they're quiet enough to not interrupt your little show? That every compliment you give is a test, and every joke you laugh at is one you'll use against them in a fight 3 months later? Denton. No, I said, louder now. He doesn't. Because you're still in the phase where you pretend you're soft. You tell him your ex didn't listen. You tell him I was cold. You tell him I didn't see you. I stepped closer. And maybe I didn't. Maybe I was too exhausted from trying to keep my dignity while living with a woman who thinks cruelty is intelligence. Her mouth opened. No sound came out. So I delivered the last line. The one that cracked something in her eyes. Go. Wear the heels. Order the wine. Be charming. But don't forget to warn him. He's just the next man you'll turn into a ghost. She didn't speak. Didn't move. Just stood there. The date was over before it started. Because the version of herself she wanted to bring to that dinner had just been unmasked by the one person who actually knew her. She left anyway, but slower now. No click of heels. Just the sound of a door closing behind a woman who finally realized she wasn't the only one who could end a story with a sentence. She didn't come back that night. Of course she didn't. I didn't expect her to. In fact, I think part of me hoped she wouldn't. Not because I wanted her gone, but because I wanted to see what it felt like to finally stop waiting. I sat at the table for a full hour after she left. Didn't eat. Didn't drink. Just stared at the 2 plates, the flickering candle between them, and the condensation forming on the wine glasses, like even the glass was sweating under the weight of what had just happened. She said she had a date. And I, idiot, husband, doormat in recovery, replied with truth sharp enough to finally draw blood. But now? Now there was just air. And the kind of silence that turns into a second voice in your head if you sit in it long enough. I cleaned up slowly. 1 dish at a time. I wasn't thinking about where she was, who she was with, what kind of man he was. I was thinking about how many times I had swallowed my voice just to keep her comfortable, how many birthdays I let her skip without a fight, how many dinners I cooked while she scrolled on her phone, how many times I listened to her talk about other people's relationships like they were fiction, never once admitting that ours was the tragedy happening in real time. And I remembered something awful. I used to think I was lucky to have her. That's the magic trick of someone like Corliss. They don't break your heart. They convince you you're unworthy of love unless it's from someone who doesn't give it easily. She never called me brilliant, but she called me stable. She never called me handsome, but she called me safe. And I wore those words like a badge, because she made ordinary sound like the best thing I'd ever be. But you know what? That night, sitting at a table set for a woman who walked out wearing heels and entitlement, I finally asked a question that punched through every excuse I'd ever built. What if I'm not ordinary? What if I'm just unfinished? And she kept stealing the pieces I needed to complete myself. I went to bed alone, in the bedroom we designed together. Technically, I say together, but let's be honest, she picked everything. The colors, the sheets, the frame, the mirror. My job was to say, yeah, that looks good, and pay for it. I lay there, on the right side of the bed, which had always been her side, until she slowly took mine too. And I stared at the ceiling and started mentally rewinding through every moment that should have been a red flag, but I painted white. The party where she danced with Alden and said, "Relax, Denton, you're not my dad." The night she left my mother's birthday dinner early because that family stuff exhausts me. The way she never said, "I love you," unless I said it first. The time she told her friend, while I was in the other room, marriage is basically just a roommate situation with legal paperwork. And how I told myself she was just being funny. Clever, independent, not cruel. At 3:14 a.m., I woke up. I didn't know why. No nightmare. No noise. Just this heavy awareness that I wasn't alone. I sat up and looked around. And I realized something I should have realized a long time ago. She was never really with me. Even when she was here. Even when she said, "I do." She said it like someone signing a contract they already planned to break. She said it like a placeholder until something better came along. The next morning, I found her necklace on the bathroom counter. Not by accident. She left it there. Like a breadcrumb. Like she wanted me to remember she existed, even in her absence. And it hit me. This was her real talent. Not cheating. Not lying. Leaving traces. She never truly disappears. She just floats out of reach and makes sure you're still watching. So I did the one thing she never expected. I picked up the necklace, opened the trash can, and dropped it in. Not out of spite. Not to make a point. Just to be free. At noon, she texted me. One line. "We need to talk." I stared at it for 10 full minutes. I didn't answer. Because I knew what she wanted. Not closure. Not truth. Control. She wanted to spin the narrative. Cry maybe. Say he meant nothing. Say she was lonely. Say I was pushing her away. But I'd already done the math. I wasn't perfect. But I hadn't failed her. She just wanted someone who wouldn't see through her. And after what I said last night, I didn't fit that job description anymore. We met at a cafe. Of course we did. She picked it. Not because it was neutral ground, but because she knew I used to like the pastries here. Like I'd see the almond croissants behind the glass and suddenly forget that she gutted me with a smile and a pair of heels. I arrived first. Sat outside. No coffee. No phone. Just me, the breeze, and my pulse trying to keep a rhythm under my ribs. She showed up 14 minutes late. Not apologetically. Not dramatically. Just late. The way she always was when something felt inconvenient. She sat down like she'd been invited. Didn't say hello. Just dropped her bag, crossed her legs, and said, "So, that was it." One syllable. I looked at her and didn't speak. Not because I didn't have anything to say. Because I wanted her to squirm. And she did. Eventually. Her fingers started tapping on the table. Her eyes darted. She shifted in her seat. Then, look, about the other night. I was upset. You were cruel. I smiled. Not big. Just enough to let her know that word doesn't work on me anymore. Cruel. I said. You called what I said cruel? You knew it would hurt me. And you didn't know that walking out for a date in front of your husband might hurt me? She bristled. Don't twist this. No need to twist anything, Corliss, I said, calm. You already tied it in knots. She blinked. Caught off guard. Corliss isn't used to pushback. She's used to me doing that apologetic tilt of the head, softening my voice. trying to end every sentence with a question mark just to avoid a fight. Not today. Today I speak with periods. She opened her mouth, closed it, then regrouped. It wasn't serious. Ah, there it was. The phrase. The fallback. It wasn't serious. The forward parachute narcissists pull when the ground gets too close. I didn't ask if it was serious, I said. I said it was real. What does that even mean? It means that for you, nothing matters unless someone's watching. Her expression cracked. Tiny. Barely noticeable. But it cracked. You're trying to hurt me, she said again. You think you're punishing me by acting above it all. I leaned back in my chair. Corliss, I'm not punishing you. I'm freeing myself from you. The silence between us got thick. People around us talked, laughed, sipped lattes. Life went on like our marriage hadn't just died in a cafe next to a potted fern. She exhaled, put her hands on the table. Can we just stop playing games? I laughed. Corliss, you showed up to a date with someone else while still married. That's not a game to you. Her eyes narrowed. I came because I wanted to talk. To fix it. No, I said. You came because I finally stopped chasing you. And you realized your control was slipping. She looked down at her hands. Said nothing. So I kept going. Tell me something. When you picked him, your little dinner date, what were you expecting? That he'd be more exciting? Less safe? Were you looking for danger, Corliss? Or just someone who didn't remember what your voice sounds like when you're lying? She looked up. And finally, her mask cracked. Just a little. Not enough to apologize. But enough to hesitate. I don't know what I'm doing, she whispered. That was the closest I'd ever get to a confession. And I didn't take the bait. Because I wasn't here for closure. I was here for the truth. You want to know what's really cruel? I said. She didn't respond. Cruel is building your identity on being adored, and then punishing the people who give you what you asked for. Still silence. Cruel is pretending to need someone just long enough to make sure they'll never leave, then telling them they're boring once they've unpacked their whole heart into your hands. She was crying now. Good. She needed to feel it. Not for me. For herself. Because no one else ever made her look in the mirror. You don't need fixing, Corliss, I said. You need reflection. And I'm done being your mirror. I stood up. Left a 20 on the table. She looked up at me, mascara smudged, still beautiful, still devastating. Is this really it? I paused. Nodded. Then said the line I didn't know I needed until it left my mouth. No. That was it. This is the beginning. And I walked away. Without looking back. The first night in my new apartment was too quiet. Not in the peaceful way. And I can hear the hum of the refrigerator, and it sounds like a voice I don't trust yet kind of way. The bedroom was half unpacked. The walls were bare. The couch was borrowed, the mattress was on the floor, and the only thing that smelled familiar was the blanket I brought from the old house. And yet, I slept better than I had in years. Not because the mattress was soft, not because the room was perfect, but because no one was walking through the door with judgment in their eyes. No one was rolling their eyes at the way I left the toothpaste uncapped. No one was sighing when I wanted to talk about my day. No one was pretending my love was a burden to carry. Just me, my silence, and the terrifying, beautiful possibility of starting over. That week, I built a routine. Woke up early, made coffee, went for a walk, just me and the streets, still damp from the sprinklers, quiet except for the occasional jogger or dog walker who didn't ask me about my marriage. I picked up a part-time gig at a used bookstore 2 blocks away. Not for the money, for the stillness, for the smell of old pages and secondhand lifts, for the afternoons where I could shelve a novel someone else gave up on and feel like maybe I wasn't the only one trying to find a new chapter. I started journaling again. Not the sad kind. Not the bleeding heart, Corliss this, Corliss that kind. This was different. I started asking questions like, what would my life look like if I never again had to apologize for my joy? What would it mean to be loved without being managed? What if peace is the point, not passion? I made a list of the things I thought were too small before. Cooking for one without feeling pathetic. Buying the cheap candle just because it smells like cedar. Texting an old friend and not overthinking it. Reading in bed with no one rolling over and asking me to turn the light off. Small things. Tiny freedoms. My things. About 2 weeks in, Eli texted me. Yeah, that Eli. The one Corliss hated because he saw through her. He said, "You alive?" I replied, "I think so." Weird, right? We got burgers. Real ones. No kale. No substitutions. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I laughed so hard I wheezed. I told him about the cafe meeting, about the look on her face, about the tears she didn't expect to shed and the silence she finally had to sit in. He raised a glass and said, "To not wasting your prime on someone else's ego." And I clinked mine back and said, "To recognizing the red flags even when they're wearing lipstick and telling you they're your fault." Corliss texted me once. Just once. "Hope you're okay." I didn't reply. Not because I hate her. Not because I want her to hurt. Because she doesn't get to narrate my healing. She told her story for years. Spoke over mine. Edited the truth. Now, my story belongs to me. And this chapter has no room for echoes of a woman who only ever loved me as long as I didn't speak too loudly. I started playing guitar again. Badly. Awkwardly. Finger cramps and all. I didn't post about it. Didn't record myself for validation. I just sat in the corner of the room and played broken chords and sang off-key and realized I was living. Not performing. Not proving. Just living. The day I took down the last box from the top shelf, I found a photo of me and her. One of the early ones. We were smiling. She was kissing my cheek. I looked stunned, like I couldn't believe I was allowed to be loved by someone like her. I stared at it for a long time, not with sadness, with thankfulness. Because that man, the one in the photo, he deserved better. And I'm finally giving it to him. 3 months. That's how long it took for her name to stop ringing in my head like a fire alarm every time I woke up. For the first time in forever, I didn't wake up in a panic. I didn't check my phone to see if she'd texted. I didn't feel like I was orbiting around someone else's gravity. I just woke up, stretched, stared at the ceiling, and remembered who I was before I'd been into a shape she could stomach. I made coffee badly. Forgot the filter, spilled a little, burned my tongue. But it was mine, and I didn't have to explain the mess to anyone. That's when it hit me. This isn't loneliness. This is space. And I've never had this much of it. I started hosting Sunday dinners. Nothing fancy. Just a few people. Eli. A couple of coworkers. My neighbor, Judith, who bakes pies like it's a religion and laughs like she hasn't been hurt at all, even though I know she has. We sit around my cheap dining table and talk like the world isn't burning. We eat. We laugh. We exist. And no one there makes me feel like I'm being auditioned for love. No one checks my tone. No one calls me too emotional. No one makes me feel like I should apologize for wanting to be seen. One afternoon, I ran into someone. Not in a romantic way. Not a meet-cute. Just a conversation. Her name was Marin. She had a chipped front tooth and carried a notebook full of unfinished poems. We talked about nothing important. Tea, mostly. Old bookstores. Bad posture. She didn't ask if I was single. She didn't flirt. She just listened. And I walked away from that conversation not thinking, could she be the one? I just thought. So this is what it feels like to be spoken to without being dissected. And that was enough. Corliss emailed me, eventually. Not a long one. Not an apology. Just, I think I understand now. And I'm sorry I didn't then. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, but because I'm not waiting anymore. She's free to grow. So am I. But separately. I write now. Not to heal. To express. To create. To leave something behind that doesn't smell like regret. One of my essays got picked up by a local zine. The editor called it surprisingly gentle for someone who's clearly lived through something sharp. That made me smile. Because yeah, I've lived through something sharp. And I didn't come out angry. I came out clear. I don't think about her much anymore. But when I do, I don't flinch. I just shake my head at the way I let her edit my worth. At the way I believed love had to feel like sacrifice. It doesn't. Love isn't loud. It isn't sharp. It isn't a competition to see who can be needed least. It's quiet. Like shared silence on a porch swing. Like coffee made badly, but together. Like being told, you don't have to earn this. So no, I didn't win. I didn't get the girl. I didn't post a transformation photo. I didn't go viral for some dramatic clapback. I just lived. Healed. Rebuilt. And maybe that's the most radical thing a man like me can do. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to help this video reach more viewers. See you in the next one.